Awesome. Um, so maybe a little background first on why we're thinking about this bidirectional sync. We already have a mechanism for moving dbt metadata into DataHub or into April. And the way it works is in your dbt model, in those YAML files, you can define a meta section or tags or descriptions, and we will pull that information out. If you need to do like minor transformations on them, we have a configuration section, which is the bottom screenshot that shows you how exactly that can do those transformations. And then it shows up in the April interface as ownership or as tags or terms. And this works both at the model level or the snapshot source, whatever you're using, as well as at the column level for all of those things. So that's great. Maybe a quick question, Maggie, next slide, is why do we want to do this? The overall reason that we care to kind of define these annotations in dbt and then sync them into the catalog, into DataHub, is around what we call the shift left philosophy. It's the idea of making documentation and governance and things like ownership a development time concern. If you're building out a dbt model, you've got information about what things are PII, what things are sensitive, who owns this, who are the stakeholders. And if you do that quick annotation of just writing a couple lines in YAML, that saves a lot of people a lot of time down the line. It's very similar to the philosophy around DevOps, which is shifting the operational pieces to developers. It's the same idea here, shifting governance and documentation and ownership further earlier in the development process. So the question that we get here is, what happens if I make edits through the UI? Because now some things exist in dbt, some things exist in the catalog, and these two things are not talking to each other in a great way. dbt is pushing updates into the catalog, but any updates in the catalog won't help folks who are purely developing on dbt. There's two solves for this. The first, which is what most people do, is they just let the things get out of sync. And usually it's not a huge issue, because you can kind of coach people to make changes in dbt or make these types of changes in dbt and these other types of changes in DataHub. The other option is folks have gone down is making DataHub read-only and then requiring edits to happen via dbt. So dbt is the source of truth, and DataHub just reflects that. Obviously, the issue is a lot of people aren't familiar with dbt or don't want to go into and make all these edits to YAML files just to like add an owner to a given thing. It's like a pretty heavyweight process and it's not super accessible, whereas pointing and clicking in a UI very much is. And so to address this kind of gap, we thought, let's just sync the two. So dbt can already push updates into the catalog. Let's complete the loop here and push updates from the catalog back into dbt. And so that way these things will never get out of sync. And so what does that look like? Well, if you go into the UI and you add an owner, it will automatically get synced. We will open a PR to your dbt GitHub repo, add the necessary config sections to your YAML files, and then that way, and then obviously we have the ability to ingest these things in. And so this way, the two will always remain in sync. If you remove an owner, we can remove it appropriately, kind of take care of all the details there. So let's, I'll share screen and we can do a quick demo of this. All right. So I had already gone into the UI last night, and as in that screenshot, I added our virtual friend Janet Herbert as an owner to this table or to this model. And we can see that there's a PR from last night as well that keeps my changes in sync. It tells me what exactly happened. And if I go to the view, I can see that exactly this thing changed. And we can scroll up and see it's the right table. Now, if I then go and let's say add a term and say that this thing actually has PII in it, I'll mark that as done. And then maybe I also want to add a tag that this is like a bronze tier data set. So we can do both of those two things. It'll take around 10 seconds to kind of process the changes in our backend, and then we can hit refresh on this PR. All right, the term came in, and then it's probably cranking through the tag as we speak. There it is. And there we go. There's the tag added to this thing as well. And of course, it works for removals as well. So I can go into the UI. Maybe, actually, Janet was not an owner for this thing. I'm going to remove her. And, once again, this thing will get updated and owners will get set to an empty list. So we can wait for that to happen. There we go. And it will, the way it works is it continually builds on the exact same, on one big PR. It kind of builds up the list of changes here. And then once this is merged, it will just, and after it's merged, if another change happens to a dbt related thing, it will open up a new PR against your repo and start adding commits there. And so there will basically be one evergreen pull request that keeps things up to date and sync. And then if you merge these, they'll get included as dbt ingestion and kind of complete the loop on that. So yeah, that's how that works. As far as availability, this is currently in beta testing with some ACL customers. If you are an ACL customer, please reach out to me if you'd like to be kind of included in that beta. And then due to kind of some of our backend infrastructure requirements, this initially, like for now, will be available only on ACL Cloud. So it won't be part of the open source project just yet.